of Java that we are going to have the discussion on is the characteristic called polymorphism. What is polymorphism, and why is polymorphism a very important component of object-oriented programming languages? And also, how do we utilize polymorphism? Is that okay? So that is what we are going to discuss today. Before we do, who can tell me what they think polymorphism is? Are people there?
Yes, in my opinion, it's like matching two objects of maybe a different type, keeping them as one.
Two objects, keeping them as one.
Yes.
Two objects, keeping them as one. That's what you are saying.
Yes, object of different types. Two objects of different types. And putting them together, keep them as one. In my opinion.
Okay, that's fine. Who else has contrasting views? Yes, I'm listening. Or I should be mentioning names like we're in class 2. Okay, let me mention names then. George, what do you think polymorphism is?
But it gives two objects the ability to be one. two different objects.
It makes two different objects be one.
Yes, so that they can have a common base.
They can have a common base.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. Okay. So the word poly means many. The word itself means many. So if I say poly, I'm saying there are many or a lot of them. That's number one. The word morph means change, right? So if I say morph means change form or change biology or change its status. Are we okay? So that's what that one. Now, the question here is that polymorphism means the program has the ability to present the same interface for different underlying forms or data types. So in terms of programming, we are saying that I can have a different interface for different underlining forms. Very technical wording, very technical statement. For example, in many languages, integers and floats are implicitly polymorphic since you can add, subtract, multiply, and so on, irrespective of the fact that the types are different. They rarely considered as objects in the usual term. So I can have 1 being added to 2.5, and this addition makes sense. Over here, it is an integer. Over here, it is a double, but we can add them together. I can have this as this, and we can add them. Both of them are integers. And then we can have this and that. Both of them are integers, and I can add them together, and it makes so much sense. But from what we've learned, we can only start working with data types that are of the same type. So you mean here being an integer and here being a double, technically, we shouldn't be able to add them together, technically, because they are different types, they are different kinds, they are different individuals. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Big man, you realize that once you start delving deeper into coding, you start to move away from the if else and all of those things in which you think they are hard. They are higher concepts in which you must understand. And again, the course is object-oriented programming with Java, which means you can do object-oriented programming with C# or with Python. Irrespective of the language, the principles of object-oriented programming are there. So here we are looking at a scenario whereby objects that are of different types can be treated as one with a common base. You see, again, I'm trying to paint this picture that 1 plus 1, for example, here, 1 plus 1 is not 2. One plus one of the same kind is 2. Well, of course, if we go and tell children 1 plus 1 of the same kind is 2, 1 plus 1 of the, you realize the child, before the child cannot even say 1. Before you say of the same kind, then you have lost the child. So we have skipped that portion of the same kind. But to us, in our mind, we know that if I ask you 1 dog plus 1 cow, you will not tell me that it will give you what? 2. To give you 1 dog, 1 cow. That means that to the computer, we need to start evaluating things not just based on the value, but the data type itself. The problem here is this, that programmers are lazy by nature. And because we are lazy by nature, we want to make sure that everything in which we do, are we okay? Every single thing in which we do, we have a way or a simple way of doing it. Hence, we don't want to repeat ourselves over and over again. So if I write something once, I would want that one thing to be able to be used in multiple different ways. The problem is that the thing I wrote was written for a particular purpose. So how is it that if I have written something for a particular purpose, I am now coming to you and telling you that the thing that I've written for a particular purpose can be used for something else? So it also makes sense that since it was written for a particular purpose, there has to be a different way that I can write that. So the word polymorphism presents us with the way in which we can do that. Are there any questions?
No, sir.
Just like a marriage, ask your question now or forever hold your silence. Now, what kind or types of polymorphism do we have? We have compile time polymorphism. We have runtime polymorphism. We have dynamic binding polymorphism. Hello? We have these kinds of polymorphism. That's great. Let's start with the first one. And here we're going to look at this. Here we are saying that this occurs when a class has multiple methods with the same name but different parameters, parameter types, or different number of parameters. Let me say this again. This occurs when a class has when a class has multiple methods with the same name but different parameter types or a different number of parameters. What does this mean? So over here, I have a particular class. So here I have a class. And here is my class. I have public class math operations. And inside math operations, I have here public, the data type, the name of my method. Over here to have public, data type, the name of my what? Method. So add this here, add this here. Under normal circumstances, this would give you a big fat error. But because of polymorphism, I won't have an error here. Why won't I have an error here? Because over here, the parameter is an int A and an int B. Over here, the parameter is a double A and a double what? B. This makes the two methods in which I have here different. Their signatures are different. So here the name is the same, but this additional part, the parameter, which makes this whole thing, the name and the parameter is signature. The signature of this and the signature of this are very, very different. And this brings us to the first point here. This occurs when a class has multiple methods with the same name, but different parameter types or a different number of parameters. Then again, over here, I could have had this same thing here, but in here, instead of having 3, I'll have comma into what? C. Because the number of things in the parameters here is different from what is here, they are different. They are different. Because the data type here and the data type are different, they are different. So it means when I call add, depending on if I am adding integers or I'm adding doubles, I would be calling on the method that corresponds to the information in which I am using. And this is called method overloading. Method overloading. Are there any questions on the first example? Now, why is this thing called compile time polymorphism? It means that we are setting the rules that, oh, it can change on this, it can change on that, it can change on that. And we have put it in the code so that when it is compiled, it will follow those rules for us. But in runtime polymorphism, they don't follow those kinds of rules. And here, we are not going to look at overloading anymore, but we are going to look at overriding. Overriding. This occurs when a subclass provides a specific implementation for a method that is already defined in its superclass. It is achieved through inheritance and the use of the override annotation in Java. Some of us here are parents, and some of us here have parents. Even if you have never had a parent, someone has told you about your parent once a while. And if you're an IT person, you are supposed to be someone who is very observant. So if you have a child, you can watch your child. And if you have your parent, you can watch your parent. And you'd realize that every single characteristic you have, it comes from your parents. Both of them. Now, for example, when your father is angry, he becomes quiet. When your mother is angry, she shouts a lot. When your father is annoyed, he will take the cane and lash. But when your mother is angry, she would insult. So now these two things mix up and then it goes to the child. Then the child is supposed to be or supposed to pick both characteristics from the parent. They will mash them up, and then he will take the ones in which he or she likes. Keep that in mind, that he will take the one he or she likes. Keep that in mind. So you realize that for the child, when he is angry, he will be quiet. But unlike the father, he would insult once he becomes angry. So he'll be quiet, wait for some time, then he will say some insulting word. Because Java is supposed to mimic the natural life of human beings. Over here, I have a class called animal, and I have a class here called dog. Animal is the parent to dog. How do I know that? Because they are saying that dog extends from animal. Hence, it is using the inheritance property of object-oriented programming, which means that dog will inherit everything that animal has. So it means that inside dog, there should be make a sound already. But dog does not make some generic sound. Dog has a sound he makes, whereby the dog sound or its sound is what? Bark. Therefore, if I inherit the sound of all animals, I will not have a sound for myself. So, for me to have a sound for myself, I will inherit you, but I would override the information you have. I will take your information out, and I'll put my information there. So that if I call upon make a sound in animal, it will tell me some generic sound. But if I call on make a sound when I am in dog, to say bark, because in dog, make a sound has been overridden, which means that it will take it, ignore the main one that is coming from animal, and then create one for itself to use. Are there any questions? Are we sure there are no questions?
Yes, sir. No questions.
So we've just learned overloading. Overloading means that I'll have the same name, but I'll give different data types to my parameters, or create or add more parameters to make changes to them. So the same thing will be there. But when I add, let's say, A, B, C, D, E, then I'm talking about the first one. But if I remove the E, then I'm talking about the second one, something like that. Overriding, you are saying that it's there already because you went to inherit it from your parents. But because whatever you would do would be different from your parent, you would override what is there. For example, when you take a bank, for example, or even employees, and let's say we are using the school environment. So as a lecturer, I am an employee of the school. But my salary is not being paid as 9 to 5. Which means that if I go and inherit salary from the employee section, it will fail me because me, I am paid as a part-timer and I'm paid per the time in which I come and how long I spend. So it means that the calculation of salary for me as a part-timer and for another person who is also a lecturer by a full-timer are totally different. So if I'm writing a function to calculate salary, my function for salary must be different from his function for salary. Hence, we will both be inheriting from employee because we are all employee. But when it comes to us, we are going to override the method salary. Ladies and gentlemen, that is what we needed to learn. Polymorphism is a question that will come in your exam. I'll ask you, what is polymorphism? What is overloading? What is overriding? Can you explain overloading? Can you explain overriding? Discuss the term overloading. Discuss the term overriding. As always, I would send you guys a more practical video for you to watch and follow along with your coding. But today's objective was not for us to code plenty, because every day we come here, we code. There's some learning too we have to do. So we are here to learn today. Mr. Joyce Joe, what can I do for you?
Hello, sir. My network was falling in and out along the line. So for the overloading and then the overriding, I'm not so clear on it. So I would plead if you can go over it one more time for me, please.
God being so good, the lecture is being recorded. So when it is done, I'll send it to you.
Okay, sir.
Because the Mexican way in a beauty, jolly. You cry, my bread.
Okay, sir. All right.
But in short, overloading is an example of overloading is this. You can see that overloading, there is no inheritance. That's number one. Overloading has nothing to do with inheritance. Overloading is saying that I have a job to do. For example, I have a job to do addition. Can you see that?
Yes, sir.
And over here too, I'm doing addition. And over here too, I'm doing addition. If you want to practicalize it and bring it to the real world, let's take salary, for example. Okay? So I want to calculate the salary of number one, lectures. But you see, the problem here is that lectures are put into two categories. Are we okay? The first category we can put the lectures in is that the lectures are, what do you call that word? Normal stuff, like they are 9 to 5, you get paid your salary 9 to 5, so on and so forth. And then we have the adjunct lectures. That means they are the lecturers who come part-time. Okay? Now, Joe, if I call on this method here, adjunct for salary, there is some information I need to create the salaries for the employees. What I need to do is I need to know, for example, their employee number. I need to know their name, of course. And then I need to know what, let's say, rank they are in. Then that will determine their salary. But for the part-time and adjunct letters, of course, I'll need maybe his employee number and his name. But here, I'll need to know the hourly rate, and then I'll need to know the hours in which he or she would work. So you can see that over here, what I have here and what I have here, they are completely what? Different. Under normal circumstances, the name here and the name here are the same. So you cannot create two methods of the same name in your program. It's impossible. But because of polymorphism, this here has 3 parameters. This here has 4 parameters. That means that this and this are what? Different. Because this whole thing here becomes the signature. The signature is the name and the parameter. So the signature of this and the signature of this are very what? Different. Hence, I am overloading the class with the same name. I'm giving it the same name, plenty. I'm giving it more work to do. So I'm overloading it.
Okay, all right.
Overriding, we are saying that I am going to inherit properties from a parent. So over here, for example, I don't know why this thing has turned upside down, but you know what I did, but you know. Over here, for example, I have a class called animal. I have a class here called animal. And I have a class here called dog. And dog is extending from animal, which means that all the properties of animal I am giving to dog. So anything I created in animal, automatically dog has it. But the problem here is this. I will take everything you have, but I also have things in which I want to do. For example, here we are saying that when we call upon the method make a sound, we are going to display a generic sound. But if you were a dog, you don't display a generic sound. You display a what? A bark. That means that dog is going to take the method from animal and make changes to it. Now, we need to tell the computer that, hey, you already have this, but forget about it and use the one in which I'm creating. So this override here allows the computer to know that it is forgetting about what is already there and using the new one that is created in the child. So it means that overloading, no inheritance, overriding, there is inheritance. Overloading, no inheritance, overriding what? Inheritance. Are there any more questions?
No, sir, I have a question, please.
Mm-hmm.
Is it possible to have a mixture of overloading and overriding in the same
Well, of course.
class?
Of
Thank
course.
you.
Of course, you can have overloading and overriding in the same project.
I was referring to the same class in the sense that, assuming that, let's use the sound of the dog, right? And then for one or two reasons, after overriding, what do you call it, sound from the animal class, now you want to create a method overload for what do you call it, the dog again. Sorry, the sound in the same sound. So the sound that is the overriding, and then another sound in there that is for overloading. Is it possible to achieve that?
Yes, it is possible.
Okay.
So, for example, over here, I have a class called employee. The class called employee has a data type or a variable called name. So it will set the name here. And here, this will be used to go and get the name. And then it has the calculate salary over here. Now, over here in the employee class, as I said, when we have full-time employees, their calculation takes information that they would use to calculate their monthly salary. So their monthly salary may be fixed. But if you're a part-time worker, you can see that for the part-times, the way they calculate their salary, they need the hourly rate and so on and so forth. Hence, in their calculation, the hourly rate is used. So I can have in here calculate salary, but over here I can override it and then make this thing directly equal to the monthly salary in which we pay them. But when it comes to the part-time employee, we can override it and make it equal to the hourly rate times the hours the person works. In here, if let's say I have to calculate the salary and I need another parameter, let's say I need the hourly rate, hours worked, and let's say bonus. That means that I'll be overloading this with another calculate salary, whereby I'll have to add a parameter or two to make it different from the other one. So that answers the question from Benjamin. So you can do that.
All right, thank you.
Are there any more questions? Well, then we thank God. No questions means life is good. So I will send you all the snippets of codes in which I displayed here for you to have a look at and then use in your free time. And again, read more, practice more, and the questions I sent you, you should be able to solve all of them within 2 hours. That means that if it has taken you more than a day to finish solving them, we have a problem. We have a problem. So please, I'm begging you, sit down and solve them. I am begging you. Are you? Yes.
So for the exams, is it going to be online? Are you going to use a PC, or you'd have to write?
You write all.
You write all.
You write abstract class, this period is equal to the all. Like how it is here, you write it like that. Pe. Remember every line. And because you are the best, I know you will not forget any line. So don't worry. When the exam comes, we'll go over it and see what we will do. Okay?
Okay, sir.
Hello, sir. Just a follow-up on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are we writing with a PC, or we are writing on paper in terms of the coding?
You are writing on the exam paper.
Writing the code on paper.
Yes, writing it on paper. And before you go in the direction which I know you are going in the direction of say, but you know, it is the modern day age and we need a computer. In the exam, I could write there, don't use IntelliJ or any IDE, use Notepad like this. And in you writing the code in Notepad, it's the same as you writing it on a piece of paper. Thereby, anything which the computer helps you with. So if you don't bring a comma, then the computer will tell you there's no comma, you don't bring a bracket, oh, you didn't bring the bracket, you go and put it there. It is gone. You are supposed to know that here you didn't bring a comma. Here, there was a semicolon there, you didn't bring it. The only mistake which is acceptable is a non-syntactic mistake. That is, it is a logical mistake. So if you make a logical error, okay. But syntax, and that is where students are always afraid of, the syntax, because they rely a lot on the computer to tell them, open bracket, then to close the bracket for them when they type inside. You are supposed to remember it all. So, my dear friend, if you want to be a great programmer, it doesn't matter if it is computer or paper or even on the ground. If the code is correct, the code is correct. We have seen that the code is the code. So you must know how to write it. There is no going away from that one. And that also brings me to something whereby a lot of you who pursue programming, whatever, there is an over-reliance on the editor. So sometimes you speak to someone and they say, maybe I like VS Code. If it's not VS Code, then I can't use it. That's a poor program. Because the editor is there to enhance your work, not to be your work. So yes, I wanted you guys to do everything on the computer, but to be honest with you, it is a hassle which is pointless. So all of you write the code on a piece of paper. Of course, those of you who are doing online, you can use the computer and copy and paste it or whatever. I don't know.
So that would be too much for us to memorize everything on this.
That is why you don't memorize. Do you think when I'm teaching you, I memorize? I memorize. To be honest with you, what you just said is something in which you hear a lot of people who are learning programming do. You know, they'll chew the code, like the code for finding area, then they'll chew it, public class, class area, it's square bracket. You don't chew the code. The reason you don't chew the code is that there are a billion problems in this world. If you go to your app store right now and you open the app store and you just click apps, there are a billion apps there, which means even for Torchlight, there are 1,000 ways people have done Torchlight. You are solving a problem. Each line takes you to the solution of the problem. So don't chew the code. I know how it sounds. I know how, we are learning it. So if you don't chew it, but your job is to focus on the line. The most important thing to the programmer is the line. After you're done with the line, how do I go to the next line, then the next line, then the next line, then the next line? Then when you are done, you realize all the lines come together and you get your program. So if you are chewing the code, when I twist the question, you are doomed because you are not flexible. You should be flexible. The problems are plenty. So even in the similar problem, there are plenty solutions you can derive based on the context in which you see yourself in. So it is very important that I say this. And I know, Charlie, I've been a student like you before. I've learned programming like you before. I chewed. Because chew, Charlie, you go see a pod drop, then you chew the code for it A is equal to, but at this stage, to be honest with you, if I chew the code, I'll die. It's line by line. And if you're writing,
actually, I'm not actually talking about chewing the code. I've been programming for more than 10 years now. And I've not only mastered in one language.
Great. So what is your problem then?
I only have to focus on my logic. But memorizing the code or actually, let's say, remembering the syntax is not something that I focus on.
So what syntax do you think remembering is difficult? The if or the for, or which one? The class, and you give a name, and the if and for. What syntax do you think you write?
Honest, I only write algorithms, but I don't actually write codes on paper.
Then you have to start writing the code. You see, I'm trying to make this point from this point. That if I was supposed to, for example, if I was supposed to rewrite the earlier coding which I wrote for the class animal, I should know that I have to write class. After class, what is supposed to be there? The name of the class. So I'll give the name. All classes must start with a capital letter. So I have given the name of the class. Then I have the body of the class, right? Now I need to give the method in which I want to use. If I want to write the method, I need to know the classification for the method. So it is going to be public. And then after I give the classification of the method, I need to give the data type of the method. So it's going to be int. Then I need to give what name am I giving to the method. So the name is make a what? A sound. Then I close it. Because I have called this thing an int, it means that this method is supposed to have a return type. So here I have a return type, and the return type is going to be, let's say, let's say, oh, this is the make a sound thing. So in make a sound thing, then it means I don't need a return type. So that here I can say.
So for example, let me just make an example. You see, as you are writing, for
you
example, make a mistake. Okay, so now you have to cancel it, or what do you have to do? How do you even cancel it? And secondly, too, I have this experience which I'm even still experiencing. I can be writing the code in Java and then mistakenly write it in PHP or even write it in Python. And then I have a problem, I have to go and correct it. So I'm just imagining now writing this thing on paper, it will really be a disaster for me.
Then you must catch yourself.
That's just the experience. I'm just like, as you are saying, that we write it on paper. I'm just like, see myself in a very situation that
I understand you perfectly. I understand you perfectly. That's why everything you said, I didn't disagree. I understand you perfectly. Because me like this, for example, in my day-to-day, I write some Java code, but I'll write it in, let's say, Spring Boot. So it's a bit different. Or, for example, I have PHP code here. Sometimes I have to write it with JavaScript, but for React and so on and so forth. JavaScript HTML is different from the normal HTML. So whatever context you put yourself in, the programming languages have syntaxes in which you should follow. Do you understand me? Now, again, no, you writing it in the computer is not a problem. To be honest with you, it even saves me marking time. And me, I want that more than anything. But another scenario too is there that you should be able to write a program syntax of less than 50 lines on a piece of paper if you are that good.
Okay. So in that case, if I may please, for the sake of for the sake of the fact that we are learning the language, and then we don't have to rely on, let's say, the intelligence of the IDE. If you permit us to use the computer, but we use Notepad.
I'll have to ask the school. As I said, to me, the people I taught web application, the master students, they wrote it on the computer. They wrote their codes on the computer. And because you realize quickly that on the computer, there are some truths in which are there. For example, on the computer, I'll just come and run it. So if I run it and it doesn't run, you have 0. On the paper, I'll read through, and then if you miss one, I'll say, oh, let me make here 5, let me make here 2. But on the computer, you have had all the luxuries. So it means that when I come and I click run, and it doesn't do what it's supposed to do, you have 0. So it's either you have 0 or 20. There's nothing in between, like, oh, try. Do you understand what I'm saying? There are some truths in life in which we always don't consider a lot of things. But on the computer, I'm not coming to stand there and read your code one by one. So I'll just come, run. It didn't run, 0. Run. Oh, it ran. Okay. Run. It didn't run, 0. On the paper, I'll say, oh, here, class, you spelled it CASS. So you let me take half from here. You half from here. Yeah, everything is 20, but I'll give you 8. Fine. On a computer, there's no 8. There's either you have 0 or 20. So let's keep, whenever we are doing something, let's keep it in context. But if you want it on the computer, as I said, the thing that will make me mark less and get out of the room early, I'm happy with. So think of it. Whatever you guys think and decide, it's only left for me to tell the school, because I told them last semester that you guys may do it online. So they have already set up the lab with the IntelliJ and everything. So you will not use your computers, you use the school's computers to do it.
Okay.
So if it is supposed to be online, that is what will happen. But again, online, there is no, oh, I tried. It's that you are getting 0 or 20. There's no I tried. So whatever you decide.
Yeah, I think we're told that with the end of semester exam, it's going to be in person.
It's going to be
in person.
Yes, it's going to be in person. So that's what I'm saying. You won't, even if it's going to be on a computer, you won't use your computer. You use the computers in the lab on the ground floor.
Yeah, okay.
So, and there is no, oh, you try. Because I know you people, you say, oh, say, by the code, I wrote up to line 30. I just didn't bring system.out.print for it to display. Consider me. There's no consider me. Look at 0. Remember that. So whatever you guys decide. Oh, I have to be very. I'm someone who is very plain and very clear with you. There is no. Oh, I hear I was supposed to bring equal to, but I made a mistake and do the double equal to. Consider. There's no consider me. It's wrong. It's wrong. 0 straight. So think about it. Whatever you decide, me a day, the bab a day. I understand next week too we have class. So next week too, I will send a link, and I think next week we will do examples that use all the concepts we've learned and put them together so that we can build our understanding in the coding language. So we'll take practical questions and then we'll see how we implement them. Different questions. I think we work like 4 or 5 questions and then see how we can use them to write code and how we can solve different scenarios in which we are focusing on. But at the end of the day, remember that if you want to do coding, there is a certain level of practice that you must do. And it is not practice and fail and moon and then stop. It's practice. How do I get from here to here? Oh, okay, then you grow. And practice the things you have been given. Make sure you are perfect on them, on paper or on computer, irrespective of whatever it is. The editor is not the programmer. You are the programmer. So the knowledge comes from you. Anyway, thank you all for coming.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.